On that transmission, I spoke a little bit about some of these codes that are coming through. And I want to tell you a little bit about some of the astrology we're in right now to help you to understand even more just how much possibility there is for deep insights at this moment while you're all coming in on the line. So in the Vedic system, we're under a guiding star called Shatabisha. And Shatabisha is called the veiled star. So it helps us to go beyond the veil, to see things that we wouldn't have seen before and to have deep feeling of them. And we've been, and Shatabisha is, our Jupiter is in Shatabisha. So Jupiter is like the teacher, the guru, expansion. So in many ways, things that have been hindering our expansion and things that we needed to learn to go beyond the veil are now, there's a possibility of very deep healing in this time. And even some of the Vedic astrologers are saying, I'm not doing many readings right now. I'm busy taking advantage of this nakshatra, this birth star. So this is a really, really big time. A lot of people are getting this sense of almost urgency and close to completion, like they know they're close to the gold with some big stuff. So I really encourage you all to indulge yourselves in calling in what you need right now. And this influences up till the 21st of July. So we have this amazing possibility to land with deeper insights as to who we are and our unique gifts, and also why certain karmas or samsaras, or samskara, I should say samskaras, were put in our field, why we karmically accrued certain things, and why that is able to ripen a little bit more now so that we can step up. So expect big things in this time. And that's why we're putting on 2 sessions, one this week and one next week, to look at some of these universal themes that are here for all of us, but also to look at how, as a mosaic or a jigsaw puzzle, we all fit together. And I've spoken to a few of you in the last few days, and some of you are very close to something. And with the quantum consciousness course last week, we had some very deep things that took place that are connected with what we're doing now. And in short, this was something that has been being worked on for about a year, where the bend in the timelines was cleared, but we don't know that, or our parts don't know that. There is a collective possibility of remembering. And this is where a lot of our confusion lies, is we don't really know where we came from. We don't know the deeper roots. We've got amnesia. Things have been hidden from us. And so now, because we're under this nakshatra of Shatabisha, the veil can be lifted. And today in the Galactic Mayan calendar, we're still in the Yellow Warrior Wave spell, which is about being a conduit for cosmic consciousness and moving beyond trauma to step forward fearlessly. So we're in this wave spell with the day of the red planetary serpent. And planetary tone is about manifesting and perfecting. And you all know about the serpent codes because I go on about it all the time. But in essence, you know, we're looking at the shadow codes that we've got in our lower chakra and our celestial codes. We're also looking at the epigenetic inherited traumas that we've got that often make us have amnesia. All these things that have kept us not really realizing who we truly are, these bends in our own timeline that stop us remembering. And obviously the Kundalini energy and this possibility of genetic rewiring. And so I hope most of you heard the transmission I made about the Palladian consciousness, and it's a hypothetical, but what I was looking at, and this was under the influence of the Egyptian Blue Lotus when I was doing my warm-up dieta ahead of holding space for some of you, was suddenly the guides were like, look, just look, really look. And it's like, what is in front of you? You know, and it's easy. We've got this thing in front of us that we're forgetting is a sign. We're seeing so many people feeling pressured at this time to conform. And I'll use the example of getting vaccinated. So we have people who feel very, very pressured, and a lot of people who are feeling it's rushed, a lot of people who are having generational or past life trauma come up where they're feeling like they're losing their sovereignty. Now, I don't have any attachment to what's right or wrong in this situation for each person. Some people need the vaccination, some people don't. But what we have got in front of us is a karma that's ripening for everybody on the planet, which is this story, which is being kind of forced into stuff. And the thing that it's hitting upon is that there's something in our being that remembers that from another time. And when anything comes in the collective in such a big way, it's not just, it's a fairy story of a goodie and a baddie. That's like the naive way of looking at it. It's because a karma is ripening and it's up for our species. That's what the bigger, if you look at natural law, that's what the bigger story is. And that actually, if we look at that, is where we can actually do something, because we can look at that in ourselves, whether or not it has ripened for us, whatever our feeling or opinions are, that's not important. That karmic story is really up for the human race right now. And when a karma is ripening, it's actually a really good thing, because it means that there's a collective possibility of a really serious lesson being atoned for and moved on from. So I'm not talking about the drama of this and that, he's a baddie, she's a goodie, that's going to fuck that person up, that's going to defend, help that person's immune system. That's not important to this, what we're doing. What we're here to look at is this collective karma we've got. And if we look at the fact that what's really freaking people out is that this is like what people think is a genetic manipulation. And we look at this concept of not knowing our full genetic history, and that some of the lifts have been taken off. Sorry for my wonky English. What we can do is start to really connect to our cellular memory and our genetics and start to look at what is genetic manipulation and why is it up, and what is the karma that we need to look at. So my hypothetical was, because it's kind of pretty likely, is that at some point, because it's in our field and we're having to look at it and go through it, we manipulated somebody else's genetics before. Okay, because that's why it's up in our face. And we have to work with them. And this is where people talk about the Pleiades and other stories. There's a fair suggestion that we have had our genetics manipulated to possibly actually acquire spirituality or to become a slave race or whatever. Those are all stories. I'm just looking at something's ripened and this is the pattern. And it's up for us now. And if it's up for us, it means we did it. Now, this is where we often, this is where I think the key is for some of us, is if our genetics are mixed, we're both the victim and the perpetrator. And this is where we can get to the root of something, because we don't usually look at ourselves like that, that actually maybe people didn't ask permission of the homo whatever they were, that they might have tinkered with. And we need to just explore that. It's a hypothetical of what really happened until we remember, but we're getting closer when we do this work. But we can look at the fact that that's ripened and look at those patterns. And so this is why this set, this 2, we will have another one coming in a few weeks. Today, we're going to look just at what happens in our field and where in our timelines did people do something to our family or us in a past life, or did we do it to them without their permission? Because there's something that some of us are remembering when we're going into this, is like true ceremony did not take place for whatever this genetic thing was that took place. And this is a fundamental natural law. from working with the Aborigines and many tribal groups. You ask permission before you go in somebody's country. You ask permission to bring different plants in. You ask permission. And we, as the little whiteys, are often with our little colonizer head on, we don't ask permission, we just waltz in. And we see it all the time. So this is already a story that plays out in the colonizer colonized. So it's already in our karma. We see it all the time. But let's go back a little bit further and look, and this is possibly the truth to our genetics, is that something happened, but the true permission was not asked. And that's why we have to look at this right now. You see, if people atone, they regret, if they start to have remorse about what happened and a true dedication to changing, karma lightens. The payback is less intense. So for those of us who are very worried about people that we know, for whatever reason, in this situation, sorry, I just have to check, sometimes people are looking for me for the call and my computer's going really slow, I apologize. Then I'm going to switch Facebook off after this one. Hold that thought. Okay, right, okay, so it's not about this martyr regret, sorry, we don't have to do this kind of fake false humility. Oh, I have so much remorse. It's about a mapping. It's about a determination to not be that in the future, and then about how we rectify our behaviors. Because this is a collectively ripening thing, it means that every little bit we do can help our brothers and sisters, okay? So the first thing that we can do today is to start and look at the micro version of that pattern. When did I not ask permission? Okay, when did I not ask permission to my brother for borrowing his pet snake? Or, you know, things that we did that we're a bit mortified about when we grew up. Or it can be stuff like, you know, sex or, you know, things like this. We're going to look at those ones today. The reason we're going to do that is because then next week, when we go really deeper into genetics, you're already going to have a lot is cleared. You're going to be able to see more deeply. You're going to be ready. And it's going to be a day, I think it's self-existing human. So it's a day about us being sovereign beings as the human template that we know and being free, okay? So this is a very important week, right? It's about us opening up this code to our genetics. And we are in the the red moon wave spell next week from the weekend. And it's about self-remembrance, remembering who we are. So first we can do a little bit of humble pie and look at where we have done things without permission, where we've been a bit of a gormless idiot, because this is in our genes to just the ego takes over. We just do stuff. And this is, you know, we've all had teachings of this. You know, when we're younger, we race ahead because we're so excited about something, but we didn't ask the elders' permission. We didn't pull ranks in the right way, and we broke natural law by not speaking to the person who we should speak to about that. This is always done. And often it's just enthusiasm, ego, eagerness, and being a bit hysterical and racing ahead too fast. And what we are witnessing right now on the planet is people racing ahead too fast with some stuff that we can see very in our face. This global thing that people think, I can't keep control of this. I'm going to have to go along with this because it's happening so quickly. And this is where natural law gets broken. It's not, it's manufactured, and consent doesn't get asked. So we can look at when we chop down trees, when we kill animals, when we experiment on animals, all of these things, these are all something that is taking us away from the golden age. The golden age will be a time where we are compassionate truly again. Because some beings are like, yes, I give myself up for food, but it's gone out of whack. Everything's gone too crazy. All this animal testing, things like this, so much of it's not needed. And this expediency and not asking permission is a really deep shadow of the human race. So let's start to deconstruct that today. And I really value you making notes and then in the group on Facebook to share, because then we'll deconstruct it deeply next week when you've landed. Because as you do this layer, the more material layer, there's going to be genetic wisdom coming through for you. And I'm really excited. And I'd love us all to bring that together to the table. Okay, so does anybody have any questions on that? Does everybody understand that principle? Do you resonate with that? Does that feel, do you feel something when we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Victoria, especially up in living up in the Kimberleys in remote communities, you know, going out to a lot of the different waterfalls, and that it's very important to ask permission to enter these grounds. And and by living up there and getting to know the culture and the old ways, I suppose to say you do learn to ask, but a lot of places you don't really know unless you ask as well, because they're not going to tell you all the sites and that as well. And there are like masculine and feminine sites where I can't take myself or my daughter and stuff like that, and vice versa. But the significance of asking to go onto the sacred site, because there's a few times that I've heard of people that don't ask and they get an eerie feeling and something's happened. Or, you know, if you do ask and you get the eerie feeling, you know that you shouldn't be on this land, because it's telling you it's not right. And a lot of sites within Australia, like Kalbarri and stuff like that, you know, building that big thing that wasn't asked for permission through the local tribe and all that sort of stuff. So it does really resonate with me, because it's very important for the Aborigines in Australia and all over that we do honour the land. So thank you for this.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. So that's a really amazing place to start with these ancient beings. I got guidance this morning when I was tuning in that I really want to dedicate this session today as well to the First Nations tribes of the planet, especially this really harrowing time. We're finding so much about what these schools were about in Canada, and this is a story that goes unfortunately through so many of the tribal groups. It's called the Stolen Generation in Australia. So not only were people nobody asked permission before they took their habitats, before they took them into homes, before they made them into mass graveyards. So today I really want for the field to know that we're dedicating this with an awareness and a looking at these tragic patterns and praying that they do not get repeated, okay? So we're going to open space now. So I'd love you all to tune in just with your being. And I want to give gratitude to the 0 point gravity field, to the source of all that is and all that is not. Giving gratitude to the grandmothers and the net of light, the crystalline mycelium grid of consciousness, and to the traditional owners, ancestors, and ancients of all the lands we're in and all the lands we're connected with, and all our relations past, present, and future. I call upon our higher selves, our monad selves, and our avatar selves to be with us in the ever-present now, so that everything that we can clear goes through our multidimensional being and also assists field to change for the highest and greatest good. We connect to the soul, the genetic, the core, and the historical level of being. And to give gratitude that if any parts of our ancestors were soul fragments associated with us, hear this today and realize that this clarity helps them to find their place of belonging. We let that happen. I also give gratitude to all the parts in our system. And again, if any parts in our system wish to be acknowledged through this process or to seek solace or a higher place to be, They are welcome. All parts are welcome. Gracias, gracias, gracias. Space is not open. Okay, so we're going to all connect with each other's hearts. Just remembering that the heart is where we share, we feel viscerally what's going on for each other. So it's not the head that's telling us what to tune into, but it's the field, so that we can clear for the collective and really work through any density. And so we're going to go into more personal aspects in a minute, but I love that Sarah's brought us to these First Nations tribes immediately, because we all have some sense of colonized or colonized in how we've appeared on country before. So I guess we've all been in nature before, when maybe we didn't talk to the ancestors and to the elementals and ask them could we come on their land. I've seen people sometimes, students sometimes be, oh, I just went and climbed a tree. And I'm like, did you ask it first? Because sometimes we're so eager that we didn't actually tune in to the language of nature, which is very slow. And this is what takes us, it's you know, we want to do our best. I want to do well, but we don't really tune in the right way. So can we just all connect to, just really go in. I really want to connect as well. I really want to ask us all to go to our deepest genetic lengths and with their depths today. Just to go further down than you normally go. And I just really want to connect to our DNA. And just if anybody has any examples where they feel they have a family member or they have a code or a pattern of not having asked permission, you can speak, but I ask you all to tune into that slightly embarrassed feeling where you know you've done it, because I'm sure we all have, and just tune into that feeling while we get resonance with each other, okay? And if somebody wants to share, that would be great.
I have something to share. Going back off what we were talking about with the Aborigines as well. It was a while ago now. I was creating some art, and in the pitch that was coming through, I was back on the lands, but I was the one taking and causing destruction in Australia, and I was the one that that's what the feeling was. It like took me back there, and I was taking the lands and causing all the destruction over there, and I was like a part of the white fellas going over, and that was really quite deep into, like, it was really emotional, really shameful, really, like I was hysterical of seeing what we've done, whether it be ancestry or whether it be past life, but it was a very clear and a lot of shame. It was me that or part of me, or that I'd done that to the other side. That's just came through as we're talking about this, and that shame and that, like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that, what have I done? And that sort of get recognition of what we've done in the past.
Thank you so much, Katie. So just, can we all tune in to that feeling and also connect with that feeling of regret and remorse, because that's important for us to hold. I see a lot of people whose ego don't want to let them do that. Not you, but I mean the outer world. And it's actually a really important part is to just sit with it. Sure. Somehow I want to connect in with a feeling. I've not looked at this before. It's not the bystander, it's the naive person. It's the person who's had to follow orders and not really been aware. So it's not even like a bystander kind of knows that there's something not quite right and they're slightly complicit because they didn't do anything. Whereas you have the people who were naive, and so many of us had naive ancestors, and just there's still a complicity. It's probably not so serious because it's not intentional. The intention to do something is karmically worse. But can we tune into you know, just being, I don't know, people call them sheeple, but you know, just following orders blindly, and that pretty heaviness. Can't do English very well today, so. I see so many people who break the law through naivety. Okay, I've seen it so many times in Indigenous settings, and it's definitely the Indigenous people who are not very wounded will always say, "Oh goodness, I can see you were naive. You were trying. Here's the law." Okay. So, but it does need to it still has this kind of hapless disregard for a law that we ask permission. Okay. So there's something about, yeah, just that not having that bit of knowledge, and just let's clear a space around that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to weave?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So for me, what resonated with me when you were all talking about this, and I connected in with the naivety, is when you could call it we was unconscious. I would say that there's so much that I've done without permission. So, you know, being a landscaper and changing landscapes, I've changed landscapes without asking for the plants. I've taken many things without asking. There's almost a part of arrogance comes through, like, well, why would I have to ask? It's just ours to take. I'm the top of there's the energy I feel like, well, why would I have to ask a stupid plant or a stupid animal? I'm talking from that part, because it's almost we're top dominance over everything. You know, why would we have planning permission and consult the birds? Why would we ask the birds? Why would we speak to the trees? You know, the educational system I was indoctrinated into is that we're the dominant species on the planet. Inanimate objects are dumb and stupid. Why would we need to speak to them? Then there's parts of me that have always had difficulty with authority. So that those parts of me would just tend to just do what the fuck they want to do. That's what we're doing, just go and do it. Why should I ask permission? There's another part of me that's always had problems with systems of governance, so taxation, queens, monarchies. Who are they to rule over all of us? How can they get rule over all of us? So there's rage and angry parts, you know. So the shadow in me can see that, you know, I've perhaps done healings on people and not asked for permission. And then there's other energies that I can feel at the minute that around this, what I'm in this field while I'm in this field, but that doesn't come through in English. Am I okay to say that?
Yes.
Eşit kuri atakare iti iki bukuri anakara atakare istakare ek isit kara atakuri otakara marakare isit kara atakuri atakara hana marakara eta sodak anak et ostak et osta esta ana sun o a iki in kara to umbar hodri anaka sundar et kuri era no kari era Kuriana manataya na turianda kirianda kuria ala kisi iti iri studio adki iri maria toru sunduriunda iri sundur adeti it oriata ena kundo orianda iri
Samarakara Markayana Kasamichika Samrika Markayana Kalikta. Isisana Chonaka, Assisonachine, Assisonat, Assisonat, Assisonat.
God.
Nana got a story on yo. Story on me ando coreo.
Sure.
My ondo. Hoy, I ando.
Sure.
Sure.
So, does anybody else have anything they want to share with that? Dean, you can still do stuff in the background, but it's just to make sure everybody gets to share.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
cool. No, it's all good. It's all good. But I just want to weave in with others. Cool. By the way, for those of you who don't meet, Dean is Dean, dear brother. You'll see him again. Welcome. Okay, so anybody else got anything they want to share? And it's interesting because in the last week, for some people who have been doing this not too long, the light language is really coming through deeply. So for those of you who haven't heard us in a full light language, get ready. They're wanting to go proper. So yeah, it's going to be a symphony of star beings very soon. But this is what the work is. You know, we've got to go to the deeper parts of our genetics. Okay, so don't worry if we go off. It's all good. Anybody got anything they want to share? We're really weaving through the dimensions, okay? So you can have a really boring story. It's okay. Sarah, you've got something.
It does connect back to the planetary experiments or implants on early humans, but it comes from, I felt with the naivety and a sense of powerlessness in the 3D, this self, this part that allowed two particular things to happen to my children in hospital, where I was asked for consent and I did not feel empowered to refuse. All stories were lies. In one, my son, they took a temperature reading, and it said that everybody does this now. All babies they have the temperature taken through their anus. And I was really not happy about it, or I was on my own. And even the doctor who I knew said, "My son, we had to do this. It's all fine." And I let that happen. And it's this really fundamental awareness that I saw in his face when it happened, that something happened to him and he knew it happened and it belongs in his pre-language body. Yeah. And that consent, it sits in me as a powerlessness or a sense of not being able to action, in a sort of right action now. And it was the same with my daughter having a blood test when she was about 3 or 4, and the nurse told her, even though she's very aware that, and we said there's blood going to be taken from your body in order to do tests to see if your kidneys are healthy, and she understood this, and the nurse said, "This is a little butterfly, and it's here to help you, and it's going to turn red." And her confusion in that process, and we knew that this nurse wasn't telling the truth, and that we didn't process in a way at the time. I didn't stand up and say, "My daughter knows what's happening." And later it's developed into, through other traumas, it's become an allergy, a traumatic response to having blood taken, that she can't stand needles.
I have the same thing, yeah. Very similar story. You probably heard, yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'd love to go deep on that, because look, there's a beauty in it ripened something for us before this time, but it's very horrid, I can tell you. So I'd love to tune in with that. And if anybody has any of those interventions that have been done on them, or had to watch somebody else have it, let's please tune in on that. Thank you for raising that, Sarah, because it even puts me in a bit of a traumatized place when you speak it. Yeah, so thank you.
I feel that.
Can I just say something linked to that quickly, and then Madalena? So there's something as well about this slight lying thing that's not helping the now for us to trust the medical establishment. So my situation is very similar to Sarah and her daughter, with a kind of nurse not being quite right with me. And I've been okay, I've trusted doctors since, but there's still something quite yucky. It was, I was meant to go through it, it was a karma, but yeah, it's about how it dents our trust in medical systems, which obviously unconsciously creates malevolent medical systems, not all, of course, I love doctors, but let's just do a bit of clearing on that and then we'll go to Madalena. Because, you know, it means that we consciously create wonky doctors and wonky nurses because of the wounds of the past that are repressed, you know? Oh, okay, Madalena.
So I feel that it's also connected with us not being I don't know, educated or told how to trust our body, and what's the signs that our body tells us dealing with the situation. And also that about the medical, I've one time that I actually trusted my body and I was like, no, there's something wrong. And I went to the doctor and I told her that something was going on, and I didn't feel any reciprocity in that sense. So it just like went in nowhere basically. So that also made me not trust doctors again, because then I feel like, oh my god, they're just going to give me a blood test and they're not like listening to what I'm telling them that I might have. Might be just because it's a feeling that comes from within and we don't have any backup or anything that proves that that's what that's
So this is, I think, I know we're going to go more deeply into it next time, but there's something, if this hypothetical about the genetics, and in some ways they say that these genetics were to make us more spiritual people. We don't know. Anyway, it's this, there's something that I was feeling when Madalena speaks. I also feel that it's almost like nobody assumed that the humans had any intuition of their own, or, you know, it was just like, well, we're just going to do it because it's better for them. How many times have children had that done for them, or tribes, you know? Oh no, they'll just, they're savages, they need Jesus, you know. They've no radar, they've not, you know, obviously the humans were living on the land. That's a big job, you know, to live actually harmoniously with Pachamama. So just this thing of, we know, but everybody's taken that right out of our hands. And I think that's very up in the field at the moment. So maybe there was a time in your life where you kind of knew something, but the institutions or the higher beings tell you how it is. And I think that's a big one for us. That it's just, we're just assumed not to know. And this would be the way that people treat people from poor areas, you know, just, okay, they don't have a voice. They don't know, you know, they're just watching football and Jeremy Kyle and eating sausage rolls, you know, they don't know. So doing a bit of clearing on that within our genetics. And then we see it playing out in front of us, is, you know, people just taking stuff because it's just, well, they said I should, you know. And I think the heavy word for it is duped. And I think that a lot of the kind of anti-vax type people are kind of going, you know, all these people, they've been duped, whatever. And it might, I think that's a strong word. and it's not necessarily appropriate. But you know, when you've made a mistake or you've done something about anything, and then that kind of yuck feeling you have when you're like, I didn't make the right decision. I think we've all got moments of that, and it would be good to just tap into those, because that stops us from then we sometimes think, oh well, I'll just take whatever because I fucked up, and I'm a fuck up now, you know.
God.
I think there's something within us as well, which connects to what Dean was saying, connects to different threads that we were all talking about, is on another level, sometimes we think, well, I'm just the little person and I don't have an opinion. And where did we give our rights away? And where did these hierarchies get imposed that give away our body sovereignty, or our, and I mean even, yeah, in terms of anything.
God.
Sure. Oh. There's something around the throat. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share about that?
Vicky, could I just that's what I could feel around the throat. And for me, what when you instantly went from that thread to the next thread, what came up for me here is anger, rage and frustration. But what it was about was, how can any of us, and I was thinking back to the recent passing of my dad and my mum and family, how can, and it really divided the family a little bit, how can any of us make informed choices about, like, back to this vaccine, about medicine, when for me it feels like even when you go and pick a packet of food up, like how can you make an informed choice if someone's if so much is being withheld from you, you know, like, and that's where the victimhood comes over, the oppression and the anger is, if we're being deliberately lied and we're being deliberately manipulated and deliberately kept dumb and deliberately kept stupid, how can we possibly make an informed consent because you're not being open and honest with me about the transaction that's taking place? When I pick a box of cereal up, for example, and I don't know what monosodium glutamate does to my body, and I don't know what aspartame does in the drinks, I'm just consuming this stuff because everybody else is, and then there's an innocent part that, but why would I have to check that anyway? Why would someone have a malevolent intent? And that's where my parents and we all got confused. You know, my dad believed in the doctors, so it was just that, I don't know, is it energetically, is it like the human race, like transparency? Does that make sense? What?
Totally. Yeah.
How can any of us make a true informed decision when these are saying this is saying that. You know, and I related to what some other people said with their children. I know that Freddie doesn't speak, and that kind of went wrong at the time he had the MMR vaccine. So then there's a bit of me feels guilty that I don't even know what I put in his body. I just went along with it because that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
The same with like registering births. I just feel like I've done so much in my life because I've just gone along with it, just because that's what my parents. So you just do everything, just register a birth, register a death, and you feel like you've got no choice. That feels I've got no choice. Well, I don't even know what my other options are. It's like, does that make any sense?
Totally. We've been looking at this recently, Dean, and it's definitely wants to be looked at still. And there's this massive sense of we don't know who we are, so we don't know we're divine, we don't know where we're from, which means that it's very hard to know what is medicine, what is truth, when we don't know what we are. And yeah, I think we need to get to a point where we're not looking from that vantage point that we don't have a choice. And there's like a rewiring that's going to be taking place as we go into these next days, where we create that vantage point that we had. That, you see, collective trauma creates amnesia. And it's like, yes, it looks very malevolent. I want to tell you something. I once met Helena and Norbert Hodge, who created the happiness index. I'm talking about it's important in this life we learn to have happiness. And she spent time dealing with different multinationals. And we were doing eco-village training in Australia, and she was there. She came in for a day to do a workshop with us. And people asked her, you know, all these multinationals, are they truly, truly evil people? And she said, you know, I've spent a lot of time with all of these people, and you know what? It's just like they're in a runaway train and they're terrified and they're sitting there in their head offices while everything's mayhem, terrified, and they just want somebody to step in to help. And whether or not that's true, I think it's a really interesting analogy, because when we look at IFS and parts, this is also what we do when we're going and talking to someone's system. Someone's system is there and it's got parts that got brought in when we were 3. You know, and it's almost like they're sitting with dust on these typewriters, typing on a typewriter with Betamax videos and, you know, old radios and like this really old, dusty factory, you know. And it's almost like when we come in to talk to somebody's system, we're like, hi, do you know it's actually 2021 and you can have a MacBook Pro with a spreadsheet on it, and you know, we have like apps on phones, and you can use all these tools now. And our system is like this runaway super company, which is really clunky and broken. And some of the parts play out like they're malevolent, like they're baddies, but actually they're just terrified children. Now, whatever the reality is, malevolence or benevolence, it can be a more robust way of looking at these things, because we became more agency with our own system as a microcosm to think about Helena and saying that these people are just terrified. I like to call them the misguided ones. It's not that they're truly bad, it's like they're a bit gormless. I mean, you need only look at the governments of most countries to see that that's kind of evident. So how can we create space in our systems and along our genetics to start to have more control? And that's why next time we'll be doing it on a day that's about our sovereignty, to not keep being subordinated in not having a decision and being contracted into this, being this kind of just victim of things. And this comes back, of course, to the colonizer, the colonized, the victim the perpetrator, this that sits in all of our systems that keeps playing out, that we have, every time we have one of those in our system, when we've still got those and they're not balanced and they're not dealt with, we will continue to be suffering and have bad things happen to us because we haven't cleared those karmas, okay? So they're ripening, and if we can have more mindfulness about them, what we're doing is we're giving the opportunity for formless governments to become more benevolent. But we have to take care of our own cellular embodiment first, is the way I like to see it anyway. And as we continually label people as evil, we create a timeline that makes them do evil acts. The minute we do, and that gives them power when we're saying these people are doing evil things. If we kind of look at them as a bit misguided, they're not on a pedestal of evil. They have no hold over our system. And we actually can create the timeline that we want to. But if we keep having a timeline that has them as the evil protagonist in it, we will never truly be free. But if we can see that they're a little bit like a cockroach, but with less intelligence and, you know, a bit of a wonky socialization, we have more opportunity for the energy to come to us. And I take this back to quantum physics or Buckminster Fuller and all of this talk about if you want a new system, go and make it and don't look at the other one. Because every time you spend time looking at the other system, you're going into the harmonics of it. You're giving your energy to it. And if you just decide the timeline you want, the other one goes away. And I can tell you that that works because I travel, you know, I've been traveling this whole pandemic. So yeah, so let's look at where we don't really believe what I've just said, because, you know, that I can say that, but you might not feel it. And that's what we want to work with. So Dean, where's that sitting in your body? Where's there any body doesn't quite know that?
It's mainly sort of here.
Okay. So do you want to say a couple of statements, and then after you, I'm going to move to somebody else?
No, I can't. Yeah, I can't really feel anything. Pretty blank.
That's good. Okay. Okay, so I want to say one word before we go to somebody else. I want you all to tune in to the phrase, I am a guinea pig. Okay? And just see what comes up. Anybody got anything linked to that that's come up from I am a guinea pig? Sarah? Sure.
The strong sense of being condemned to my actions as being a helpless protagonist, as being both powerless and by being powerless, that I act upon the generations that are in front of me the same thing that's happened to me. Is it all right to speak about this? It's coming back to creator beings and the experiments on early humans, but it really keeps coming in strongly that the impetus to get the work done well, to get it done, was so strong that there was no understanding when implants were put into humans that they were already divine. They were already that. And this is just this tremendous sense of dismay and like in the whole power, in the power that these creator beings had, that they didn't realize that, you know, that was such like a fundamental mistake that it's reiterated right the way through the human history, separating humans from their own divinity, that divinity had to come in to be visited down on them and left this. It was, the implant was always empty. It was always neutral. It was always there in a good intention to receive divinity, but it ended up being used and misused by so many other energetic systems that came in, that it rendered by almost by accident, by default, that it channeled all sorts of other like wonky codes through that other beings used. So it needed to be spoken out today to release this creator energy back to being also a form in learning, that this is a young form that is learning too, and who wants to be redeemed from this pattern.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it was just like so many things. It's like, oops, you know, it was not malintended. It's just people got a bit eager and they forgot a fundamental law because they were also fallible. And very soon we're going to be going into council with those beings to just explain that some of this work's taking place and just say, you know, this is, we found this oversight in the genetics and it's time to just really, we'll own it, but we're all working beyond that because we've all got it in us. So you see, with that, the amnesia can lift, because once we are able, when a person doesn't know they're in trauma, they can be very disembodied and they don't know their full potential, they're fragmented. But the minute you start to say somebody, oh, is that trauma? They start to unravel and start to reassemble. And us starting to realize this is how the energies took place in us is going to do something amazing to help us actually to remember these deeper layers and to come to a non-duality with it. And we will start to remember, because we're actually realizing that there was like there's a genetic trauma when you actually you've got your own earth-based divine being, and then you've got your creator being, but we have been very dissociated from our creator being status within us because it's been hidden because of the kind of, they rushed it and fucked up a bit, which is what we're seeing on the planet, is people rushing vaccinations that should take 20 years to test, and they're really wanting to help. They're wanting to take us to this new level of high science and high medical. It might work for some people. We don't know yet. It's just rushed. It's just breaking natural law because it's rushed. It's playing out the collective karma because it's rushed, and that's what happened. And we're at different stages of interaction with that narrative, depending on what's ripened. And nobody's a winner or a loser. So it's ripening for everybody all at the same time, but in different perspectives because of what we've already accrued. And yeah, so let's just tune in to that, and just, I'd like for us to start to move into a deeper, more transfigurative aspect of this, because we've done a lot of the transmuting side. It's now really to look at the potentiality that sits within you now that you realize that you have that rushedness that pushed against natural law, not even just natural law, but also universal law and protocol, and just you see, everything's there to be forgiven. It was all perfect. We know it was perfect. It was there to bring us to a higher level of awareness, because we were not ready in the scheme of things, galactically, we were not ready to embody our higher divine potential. We've had to do this quest. That is why we have this quest of good and evil, because we're still in the lower chakras of development. And this is us stepping into the fourth and fifth dimension, and the fourth and fifth chakra is us starting to move out of that. So it's like, that's why the Palladian black box in Uluru, the switch was flipped on solstice, and that's when we're now in this Palladian ripening, because now we can choose to come to the higher level. So we don't have to sit trapped in that drama. That was not the karmic reason. It's that the karma is matured so that we can remorse and upgrade. Okay, so we've actually done something really good, because that's ripening for everybody all together. So just sit, and just with that remorse, also give yourself, you all understand self energy. Really sit and boost self energy for your system, just letting all the parts, all your genetic parts, your creator being, your colonizer, colonized, all just know that they are all welcome. Okay, we just really want to give a big, big self transmission. Connecting to our Buddha nature. If you find any parts or any feelings that feel that they need to be acknowledged, as you sit with that, you may speak for them. As we hold unconditional love. We have a part that wants to say, I'm sorry.
The
part that's sort of come up for me is the scientist that truly does want to help, but perhaps just didn't use the right method to get the help out, and just got lost in the process of trying to help.
Yeah, it's addictive. The adrenaline, it's the same when people are at war, and people think they're fighting a war, we're fighting vaccine. So people are doing their bit for the effort, and they're trying so hard, and they're on a rush. That's outside natural. It's a bit of a hysteria. So yeah, let's hold space for that, because we've all had that hysteria part that gets addicted to it. Yeah, and that's what we're in, and that's what we've been in, these kind of ensuing bloodbaths, you know, but of good intent and ultimately. Okay, so just hold space for that. Let whatever clearing and transmuting needs to take place.
God.
How do we learn? Sorry, just let me start back in. How do we learn when it's the ego taking over, and when we're purely acting in alignment with natural law? This is what we all do. get carried away. And I guess there's something about being recognized in here. You know, oh, I will be recognized as a Nobel scientist. Oh, my name will be famous for saving all these people. And it's a tricky little one, you know, that moment where it's not just humble service for the greater good, but where egoic hysteria of what looks like do-gooding becomes the shadow. And I think that's been a big one for us historically. Yeah. So tap into, try and feel, I'm going to sit in silence for a bit while I want you all to find a moment where you did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you put on a course and you tried to promote it to loads of people because you thought you were going to save them in some way. And you weren't really thinking about actually 4 people's enough people, that you thought, I'm going to have all these people come, they're all going to be, you know, having this amazing outcome. And, you know, these times where the idea of being benevolent takes over the actual true benevolence. It's a very, very tight code to bust. Maybe in a galactic council, maybe that's exactly what the Pleiadians or whoever wanted to do. Maybe they wanted to have a success, the new being, you know, whatever. I want to say something that's maybe helpful. I'm in a massive process of piloting loads of courses at the moment, and it's so brilliant. I love it. Small amounts of people working doing these things, but I tell them they're in a pilot, and I ask them would they like to take part in a pilot, and it's truly transcendental because less is more, and I love it. I get so many insights, and sometimes we have this ego thing about, I don't want anybody to think I'm just a beginner in this. And we do something and we're early in it. And this is what we do when we're younger. We're like, oh, I've got a training. Now I want 40 people to come to my workshop. Okay. Rather than saying to people, I just qualified, I'm doing a pilot, or I've been sitting with these teachings for a while, but you're the first group. And this thing that we don't tell people because we think somehow it makes us look lesser. And actually, you know what? When everybody's actively knowing you're doing an experiment, like when I'm doing therapy with people, I say to people, okay, we're going to give you an experiment to do over the weekend as homework. And this is Janina Fisher, who's a great educator on sensory motor psychotherapy, says clients love experiments and homework. Their parts love it. Go and get them doing loads of work. You don't have less to do. And they're actively engaged in the process. So it's that thing about saying to somebody, you're part of it. We're doing an experiment. Would you like to be in it? And there's some sort of little mini shame or embarrassment, I think sometimes about, I'm just starting off. And maybe that's what we've got in our history stream, you know? It's quite hard sometimes to be self-reflexive and say, you know, I'm just doing this thing because we look and we think everybody looks so more experienced than me. They'll never want to come to my thing. And I've got a yoga teacher, Debbie Carr, who says to people, don't lie on your things. Tell people, I'm so passionate about this. You're my first class. I'm so excited. I'm passionate about this. She said, because the right people will come to you. But if you're pretending to be something else, you're going to just look wrong. And actually, I just woke up to somebody doing something, a student, bigging herself up on Facebook today. It was very interesting, and not being truthful about her accomplishments. And I had to say something. So let's look at where we've been, and maybe the Palladians or whoever was their first job, but they didn't really ask because they were so excited about doing it, you know, because we've got it in us. Why have we got this thing? So maybe just look at any time you can't jump the gun, you weren't quite honest, you know, you didn't quite say where you're at. This is what we do. This is a biggie. Okay. And if anybody's got anything they'd like to share on that, we can clear and upgrade.
I just had a bit more, a lot. Well, I was really resonating with everything that you all just were sharing, and the things I've done, you know, trying to help, you know, sharing sacred geometric codes I shouldn't have done. And the first thing that came into my field was, I don't know, just felt like a forgiveness, like I was a young soul, young, naive. You don't, I heard the words very loudly, it's okay, you don't know what you don't know, you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, you're learning through your experiences, you'll always be. So I was feeling that, and you know, and just like this child, I just felt this childlike, you know, wonderful and magical, and you know, you don't know what you don't know, just, you know, that's all.
Totally. They're rookie mistakes and we all make them, but I do have to add something to that, but we do create karma from them. They have this cause and effect. So if we can just sit with that, it's like it's how we learn. But if we just be aware, okay, that brings karma, then that's okay. You know, people will do it. But just tune in on it. It's good. Yeah, we all do it. But we learn not to do it as we get older. We'll have our asses kicked here or there. And I do feel that where we're going to now, we have to quickly look at what we've got happening on the planet right now. There's a need for us to strive for impeccability and to learn this lesson as practitioners more quickly now because the stakes are higher. And I think that's what really we're getting to the root of here. So just sit and hold space for the young parts of you and your rookie mistake parts. And just let them know that it's part of the journey, that you understand. And if there's any part in your being, I've got this yearning feeling in my heart. It just feels like it wants some forgiveness. Let's all look at each other. And if you want to, by proxy, just show forgiveness to each other, this unconditional positive regard, but then you can help to give to your own system. And just knowing the perfection of everything. And then just send that inward and across your multidimensional self. And we're going to connect with our systems, all our parts, and our multidimensional being, and just explain to your system, to your being, that over the next week, we want to know more. Next week, we're going to be going another layer deeper. And going into an inquiry as to what it is that we are now. What are we? Now that we're letting some things be seen. We all have hybridity within us. And I don't just necessarily mean that we're all ETs. I mean, we're all products of web or interbreeding or whatever people would say. And to come to this deeper awareness of who we are, next time we'll also look at any shame we might have, because I see this in cultural groups sometimes. There's the shame of the blackness or the shame of this. And now that we're going these deeper layers, is there a shame about part of us that we need to look at so that we can be a self-existing human who is a higher human than we thought? You see, often the bit that we've got shame about is actually where there are gifts waiting for us. And I used to work with young Afro-Caribbean children and youth from pretty dangerous areas. And they had so much shame around their blackness. And their blackness holds keys of civilization, of deep roots and magic. And they couldn't even write their ethnicity down on a piece of paper without going into the process and having to leave the room. And you have to tick these boxes, the funders. And so from the minute we'd have them coming in, they were going into a process because they were being asked what they were and their hybridity was being brought up. And seeing the shame around them having to look at that. And so I was doing activities to help them to explore the positivity of blackness. So we used to do all these African liberation events and all these amazing things to help them to suddenly realize just how much wealth they had in them, to help them to give them aspirations in their lives. So I would love if we can look at have we got any shame around hybridity, and bring that in next time so that we can actually, you see, I feel that there's tools and keys both in our human side and in this bit that we're finding out more about. And there's probably an amount of shame, that's amnesia, that's trauma, that's keeping us latent and stuck and controllable. And therefore we sign our stuff away because we haven't truly got the awareness yet of what we've got in us. So now you see, we're looking to try to look at this from a different vantage point in this week. To land with next week is like, actually I suddenly realize, oh my goodness, I want to tap into that. And it might be like, whoa, I could make really good daggers out of stones. That might be brilliant. Or, you know, I'm very good with a piece of henna and a cape. I don't care. It's like, but it, you know, there are things that we've forgotten because of the trauma of this. And then this blanking out that creates a shame around where we come from. And so we need to look at that where it sits in our timelines of, you know, okay, was it Scottish Irish or Polish or whatever, and further back, okay? So please do start to tune in on these things, because this one's it's a 7-day process, and 7 connects us to the Pleiades. 7 is the number of the Pleiades and the number of the chakras. It's very much a DNA rewiring number. Does anybody have anything they want to share just before we close? It feels that needs to be shared today. Okay, so we just want to give gratitude to all the parts in our system and all the multidimensional parts, ancestral parts that have been here with us. Thank you for being with us. Giving gratitude to our higher selves, our monad selves, and our avatar selves for being with us in the ever-present now, so that any changes that take place ripple through our multidimensional self and through the species for the highest and greatest good, if the species wishes to receive. So we ask their permission to receive. And giving gratitude to the 0-point gravity field, the source of all that is and all that is not, and to the core, the soul, the genetic and historical levels of our being, to the grandmothers, the net of light, the crystalline mycelium grid of consciousness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to our DNA. Thank you for yielding information. We ask you to please help us to deepen our insights as to our roots. We're ready. And thank you to all of you. And our higher selves, our monad selves, thank them. To all the high vibration, multidimensional beings who are here for our highest and greatest good in all timelines, dimensions, frequencies, and realms. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Space is now closed. And you can also just pull your energy back into your crown and zip your energy field up so that you are keeping a sovereign space for yourself. Yeah, thank you.